There's a word Japanese swordsmen used 400 years ago, right before they stepped into a fight where one mistake meant death. The word is Mushin. It means no mind. Not an empty head, not a blank stare. Something else. A state where the swordsman stopped thinking about his technique, stopped thinking about winning, stopped thinking about dying, and just moved. Western traders have a name for this too. They call it being in the zone. That strange hour where the charts stop looking like charts and start looking like something you can just read. Where you're not forcing trades, you're not hesitating, you're not revenge trading after a loss. You're just executing. Clean, calm, almost bored. Most traders touch this state maybe once a month, by accident, on a random Tuesday when everything just clicked. And then it vanishes, and they spend the next 3 weeks trying to force it back, usually by doing the exact thing that killed it in the first place, overthinking. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Mushin isn't luck. It's not talent. It's not something you're born with. Samurai trained for it the same way you'd train a muscle. Repetition, ritual, and a very specific relationship with fear. Today, I'm going to break down exactly what's happening in your brain when you're in the zone, why it disappears the second you start chasing it, and the 5 psychological shifts that let you access it on demand. Not once a month, but on command, whenever the market opens. Stay with me, because point 3 is the one that separates traders who are consistently calm from traders who are consistently anxious, and it has almost nothing to do with strategy. Let's start with what's actually happening underneath the surface. Point 1. The zone isn't a feeling, it's the absence of a feeling. Here's where most people get this backwards. They think being in the zone means feeling confident, feeling excited, feeling powerful. It doesn't. The zone is the absence of self-monitoring. That's it. That's the whole secret. Psychologists call this the loss of self-consciousness. When you're in flow, the part of your brain that constantly narrates your own performance, the part whispering, "Am I doing this right? What if I'm wrong? Everyone's watching," that part goes quiet. Think about the last time you made a genuinely great trade. Not a lucky one, a great one. You probably weren't thinking, "I am so confident right now." You probably weren't thinking much of anything. You saw the setup, you executed, and it was only afterward that you realized what you'd done. Now think about your worst trades. The ones where you moved your stop loss 5 times. The ones where you closed early out of fear or held too long out of hope. In every single one of those trades, your inner narrator was screaming. You were watching yourself trade instead of just trading. This is why trying harder to get into the zone never works. Trying is a form of self-monitoring. The moment you think, okay, focus, get in the zone, you've already left it. It's like trying to fall asleep by forcing yourself. The effort itself is the obstacle. Samurai understood this centuries before sports psychology gave it a name. Their entire training wasn't about adding more thoughts, more analysis, more rules. It was about subtraction, removing the internal chatter until movement happened on its own. Your job isn't to build confidence. Your job is to quiet the narrator. And that starts with something almost nobody talks about in trading education. Point 2. Your pre-trade ritual is doing more than you think. Watch a sumo wrestler before a match. Watch a Japanese archer before releasing an arrow. There's always a ritual, precise, repeated, almost ceremonial. Western culture tends to see rituals as superstition. Bounce the ball 4 times before a free throw, tap the bat twice, whatever. Cute, but not real, right? Wrong. Rituals aren't superstition. They're a psychological on-ramp. Here's what's happening biologically. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish well between this is a familiar, safe action and this is a dangerous, high-stakes action, unless you give it a clear signal. A ritual is that signal. It tells your amygdala, the threat detection center of your brain, that what's about to happen is routine, not an emergency. This matters enormously in trading because your brain, evolutionarily, does not know the difference between "I might lose money" and "I might get eaten by a predator." The same fight or flight machinery fires either way. Elevated cortisol, narrowed attention, impaired decision making. That's not weakness. That's biology doing exactly what it evolved to do, just in the wrong context. A pre-trade ritual. The same 5 minutes, the same breathing pattern, the same checklist. Every single day, win or lose, retrains that response. Your brain starts associating the ritual with calm, not danger. Over weeks, that association becomes automatic. You sit down, you go through your ritual, and your nervous system downshifts before you've even placed a trade. Most Western traders skip this because it feels inefficient. Just open the charts and go. But that's exactly why their emotional state on any given day is basically a coin flip. Good mood, bad mood, anxious morning, confident morning, it all bleeds straight into their trading with zero buffer. The ritual is the buffer. It's not decoration. It's a psychological airlock between your life and your trading. Point 3. Detachment from outcome is not the same as not caring. This is the one I told you about. Pay attention here, because this is where most traders sabotage themselves without realizing it. There's a concept in Japanese thought called mu, a kind of productive emptiness. Applied to trading, it means detaching from the outcome of any single trade while still fully caring about your process. Most Western traders hear "detach from outcome" and think it means don't care if you win or lose. That's not it at all, and misunderstanding this distinction is exactly why so many people fail at it. You should care deeply about your process, your entry criteria, your risk management, your discipline. What you detach from is the emotional charge tied to any individual result. Here's why this matters so much psychologically. When your self-worth gets tangled up with whether a single trade wins or loses, you create something psychologists call outcome-contingent identity. Your sense of being a good trader, or a good person even, starts rising and falling with your P&L on a minute-by-minute basis. This is a nervous system that cannot make clear decisions, because now every trade isn't just a trade, it's a referendum on whether you're smart, whether you're disciplined, whether you're good enough. That's an enormous emotional weight to carry into something that requires a clear head. Traders who operate from Mushin have separated these two things completely. A losing trade that was executed according to their plan is a success, because success was redefined as "did I follow my process?" not "did I make money on this specific trade?" A winning trade that broke their rules is actually a failure, even though the P&L says otherwise, because it reinforces a dangerous pattern. This single reframe, measuring yourself by process instead of outcome, is probably the single biggest predictor of long-term profitability. Not because it feels better, though it does, but because it removes the emotional volatility that causes revenge trading, over-leveraging, and abandoning your strategy the moment it stops working for 3 trades in a row. You are not your last trade. You are your last 100 decisions, evaluated by whether they matched your rules. Point 4. The samurai trained for death so they could act without fear. You need to train for the loss. This sounds dramatic, but stay with me, because the mechanism is identical. Samurai philosophy included something called the way of dying, mentally rehearsing your own death so thoroughly, so repeatedly, that when the moment of real danger arrived, it held no fear. Not because they didn't value life, because the fear had already been processed in advance in a calm state, long before the high-stakes moment. Trading psychologists now use a version of this same principle. It's called pre-commitment, or loss rehearsal. Before you enter a trade, you decide, in a calm, rational state, exactly what you'll do if it goes against you. Not "I'll figure it out if it happens." You decide now, while your prefrontal cortex is fully online and your emotions are quiet. Here's why this works. In the heat of a losing trade, your brain shifts into a more primitive, reactive mode. Cortisol rises. Your ability to think clearly, weigh probabilities, and stick to a plan drops sharply. This isn't a character flaw. It's simply how human brains function under perceived threat. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational analysis, effectively gets overridden by the amygdala, which just wants the pain to stop right now. If you haven't pre-decided your exit, you're asking your most impaired, most emotional self to make a critical decision in real time. That's how a small, planned loss turns into an account-destroying disaster. You widen the stop. You add to a losing position, hoping it turns around. You freeze. But if you've already rehearsed it, if price hits this level, I close. No negotiation. You're not making a decision in the moment. You're just executing a decision your calm self already made. That's the entire trick. You bypass your emotional brain by outsourcing the decision to your past, calmer self. This is why professional traders sound almost robotic when they describe their stop losses. It's not because they don't feel fear. It's because they've already had the argument with fear in advance and won it before the trade even started. Point 5. Silence is a skill, and most traders have never practiced it. Last point, and this one ties everything together. Mushin doesn't happen in noise. Not literal noise, mental noise. 20 tabs open, 4 chat groups pinging, Twitter open in another window, news headlines scrolling, a YouTube video playing in the background while you're trying to read price action. Every one of those inputs is a tiny demand on your attention. And attention, psychologically, is not an unlimited resource. It's closer to a battery. Every notification, every distraction, every quick check drains a small amount of the same cognitive fuel you need to stay calm and make clear decisions. This is called attention residue. Even after you close the tab, part of your mind stays partially engaged with it. You don't fully return to the chart. You're trading at maybe 70% presence, and you don't even notice because it feels normal. It's just how you've always traded. Japanese tea ceremony, calligraphy, archery, all of it shares one core structural feature: single input, single task, total presence. Not because ancient culture didn't have distractions, but because they deliberately engineered environments where distraction was structurally impossible. You can do the same thing with your trading setup. One chart, one strategy you're watching for, phone in another room, not just on silent, physically elsewhere. No news feed running in a side window. This isn't about discipline in the moral sense. It's about removing the leaks in your attention before you ever sit down. Traders who report being in the zone consistently aren't more naturally talented at focus. They've just removed almost every competing input, so there's nothing left to fragment their attention. Mushin isn't something you summon through willpower in a noisy environment. It's what remains, automatically, once the noise is gone. Bringing it all together. So let's put the pieces where they belong. The zone isn't a feeling you chase. It's what's left when your inner narrator finally shuts up. Your pre-trade ritual isn't superstition. It's a signal to your nervous system that this is safe, familiar territory, not a threat. Detaching from outcome doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop tying your identity to any single result, and you start measuring yourself by process instead. Pre-deciding your losses means you're never asking your most emotional, most impaired self to make your hardest decisions in real time. And silence, real, structural silence, is the environment Mushin actually needs to show up in. None of this is about being a calmer person by nature. It's about engineering the conditions where calm becomes the default, instead of something you're desperately hoping shows up before your next trade. The traders who look naturally zen under pressure aren't naturally anything. They just built the ritual, did the rehearsal, and removed the noise long before the market ever tested them. If this shifted how you think about your own trading psychology, that's exactly what this channel exists for. Every week, we break down the mental patterns that separate consistently profitable traders from everyone else. Not strategies, not indicators, the actual psychology underneath the screen. If you want to keep training this side of your trading, subscribe to The Inner Edge, and I'll see you in the next one.